Hello, everyone. How are you? And welcome not to the franchise show, but to Franchising Brand Stories. It's a brand new show brought to you by the makers of the franchise show. Well, me, actually, but there you go. And Simon Wise. Look, it's fantastic to have you with us. If you've ever watched the franchise show, we're going to follow a similar format. It's going to be very much audience engagement. Um, but let me explain the premise behind this new show. So, franchising brand stories is about bringing the story of a brand to people. And the story is really important when you're trying to align with whether a brand is right for you. You can hear all the numbers and see all the brochures that you want to, but really you're getting to know somebody that you're going to be doing business with for a considerable amount of time. So by understanding the story, the brand story behind it all, it really helps you align with the values of that person and the culture of the company. So we're really hoping by bringing these really valuable stories to potential franchisees that they can be enlightened as to the stories and the companies behind the brands. Now, each week we're going to take a new wonderful brand, and we're going to have a lovely guest representing and talking about that brand story. And this first week, we've been very honoured indeed. We've hit the jackpot week one, in my view. So everybody watching will, of course, know Amrit from Walfinch, and it's my absolute honour and privilege to have you as our first guest, Amrit. You do a huge amount on LinkedIn. You support others absolutely where you can. I'm a huge fan of what you do, and really excited to hear your story today. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce everybody to Amrit. I'm sure most of you know Amrit. And perhaps you can explain first a little bit about what Walfinch is, what sort of services you provide, and where you're at this point.
Well, first of all, Harvey, thank you so much for inviting me. The honor is very much all mine. I'm really excited to help kickstart and get going with the franchising brand stories. Um, what do we do? So, Walfinch is a home care provider. That's the fundamental, the primary business. We provide care largely to older people. And so, whether that be companionship, whether that be slightly more complex or live-in care, we deal with a kind of wide array of support for older people in their own homes. So, keeping people independent in their homes and keeping them safe at home for a much longer period.
Great, that's fantastic, and it's really good to understand exactly, what you do, as a brand, what service that you provide, and what a great service to provide as well. My wife, for many years, worked in the care industry, so it's such an important thing to do to look after that generation of people that are really special. And my goodness, we're talking about stories today, and don't they have some stories to tell, the people that
Oh,
you look after?
and actually, I think you do such a wonderful thing here. And one of the things that we don't do so well in social care is tell the story. There's 1.5 million care workers out there, and they are just every single one of them has a beautiful story. And I think
Mm.
that's one of the things that really excites me about social media and so on. It's kind of just bottling those really wonderful stories and getting them out there. So yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Before we get on to sort of where you're at as a brand right now as it stands, I'd just love to recognise a few people who've joined us today, because this show is definitely all about everybody coming together and enjoying the stories and sharing experiences, asking questions and getting involved. So we have the wonderful and ever wise Simon Wise, my partner in crime for this particular venture. Love what Simon does. Everyone knows Simon, and Franrec. He's a big supporter of the franchise show, and we came together with this project because we were both really interested in the stories and really interested in helping people hear those stories and making a more informed decision based on starting to align with a brand and understanding their values. So great to have you here as usual, Simon. And I know he's on the way to a concert, so enjoy that. We've got Natalia here. Fantastic to have you here, Natalia. And she's so excited about this one, Amrit. We've got Paul from Pittsburgh. Great to have you here, Paul. Fantastic. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. We've got the wonderful Penny Hopkinson, and Penny is a big fan of the show, and I'm gonna do her book because I always do. I love Penny. Reach out to her if you need anything ops wise. And Penny's put, hello, Harvey and Amrit. Nice to see everyone again. Really looking forward to hearing your brand story. Well, yes, that is what we are all about, and we can't wait to hear it. I certainly can't wait to hear it as well. We've got 3 more people here before we get going on things. We've got Ed. Ed, a lovely guy. Everyone knows Ed. He's put, evening, guys. Amrit's story is a good one, but it's not over yet. Of course.
Good man, Ed.
Absolutely. It's a story always continues, doesn't it? We got a couple more people. We've got Julie. Hello from a sunny evening in the northeast of England. Well, that's lovely. It's not often you can say that in that part of the world. Sometimes a bit cloudy. It's cloudy here. Misty, in fact. And then finally, we've got the wonderful Jason Kaber from SEO Samba, one of the lovely sponsors of the franchise show. So look, fantastic to have everyone here. Feel free to comment and ask questions as we go along today. But I'd like to start, Amrit, by if you could let us know where you're at as a company right now, before we delve back a little bit into the future.
No, great, thank you. We have about 30 plus locations. We'll probably end the year with just over 40 locations this year, with a few in the pipelines at the moment. We have one company-owned location. We tend to keep 1 to 2 locations. I think, having been a franchisee myself, I think it's really important to actually understand what the problems are on a day-to-day, and live the dream with the franchisees, so to speak. And that's kind of where we're at the moment, and that's our trajectory for the next 12 months.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love what you said there about trying to understand and experience what the franchisee is going to go through, because you really do have to understand that in order to be able to help them through their journey.
Truly, having been a former franchisee in the home care space, I think one of the most important things about franchising is the franchisee. Whatever your end product is, whether you are selling lawn, whether you are doing care, for us as a franchisor, that is the center of our world. And if we don't understand their day-to-day plight and their problems, whether that's recruitment, whether that's I need some marketing support, or whatever that might look like, what the heck are we up to? And I spent a bit of time with Greg Nathan, who's a wonderful author and coach within the franchising space, and in the States recently, actually. And he was talking about being sort of franchisee centric, putting them at the heart of the conversation, thinking about their profitability ahead of everything else. And actually, that's it. I think when people try to do franchising right, if we can think about franchisee unit level economics and put that at the center of every discussion, you're good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that putting the franchisee at the heart of the conversation, I think that's something that just really resonates with me.
Yeah.
Without the franchisee and without the wonderful people within the organization, there isn't anything there. It's all about the people within the organization, isn't it? That's fantastic. We've got another person here. Let's just quickly recognize the fact that James is here. James has put, can't wait for this one. And he's also put that he's on a train back to York from Newcastle. So that's fantastic. Great to have you here, and looking forward to hearing your thoughts. You mentioned, about putting your franchisees at the beginning. I know you do so much on social media. You're a big character on social media. You like to make sure that you're the face of the business as well. And I love that. People have already got to know you because you make yourself known. You don't hide in the shadows there. How important is it to you to be that face and put out who you are to the people who want to know about your brand?
I I think rather than it being important to me, it's important to the brand, and important for the franchisees, that they've got somebody that is constantly out there doing the work. There's this quote from Arnold Schwarzenegger that came up on my phone the other day, and it was do the work and then tell everyone about it. And I thought, that's so true, right? It's kind of
Mm,
getting out there, doing the public speaking, doing the work, and then getting it on socials to let everyone else know what you're up to. And part of that is around people that are looking at us and thinking about, well, would I want to be self-employed? Is the support there, and so on. But also part of that is for the franchisees and thinking, well, how do we bottle that and put something different on different platforms
mm,
that might help introduce more care workers or clients, and help with our online presence. Because when you're in it and you are running that business, often the last thing you're thinking about is, let me take a selfie and get it onto the socials, and think about all of that. So having someone there, I think, to do that, and to be a face of the network, I think is important.
mm,
Also, we are owner operated. There is just me. I own Walfinch, outright, and we have a wonderful management team. But as a franchisee, to know that we are owner operated, UK run, and that's it. There's no sort of faceless organization, some private equity firm in the States and so on.
mm,
It
mm.
is us here on the ground churning it out. And I think that's really an important message for me to kind of get out there to people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about getting the right messages out there as well, isn't it? And truly conveying who you are, because yes, it's a great big team and all of those wonderful people that you work with that have made it so special and what it is. But also people want to understand where it began.
Yeah.
And actually that moves us on rather nicely to the to the next section here. And I'd like to now, if it's okay with you, Amrit, take you back on a journey right to the beginning where the spark of the idea happened. It ignited in your mind, and it was up here. And with any great business idea, it starts up there. So, perhaps you could explain where that all began.
That's very cinematic. I feel
It
like
was.
my
It
chair
was.
should start spinning and going back in time with a bit of a
Please, I
puff
did
of
that.
smoke. So we're in 2012, and I'm in a coffee shop in Amersham, and
Excellent. Good choice.
right, there's only one worth going to,
Of course.
and I'm with my now wife, my then girlfriend, and I was in restaurants, and so Monday afternoon was our date night of choice, because I was working like a trader the rest of the time, as you do in restaurants, and I was looking at her thinking, gosh, I'd really love to propose to her at some point, but she'd be absolutely bonkers to say yes because I'm never around, and my wife is a dentist, and her family's been in social care for about 30 years, and I said, look, what else could I do you think? We're sort of spitballing and so on. And she's like, have you thought about domiciliary care? And like every self-respecting 25-year-old or whatever it was, I asked her, what the hell is that? And the next thing I know, I'm speaking to all of the franchisors around the country. I've bought a franchise. I'm doing about just a ridiculous round trip on a daily basis. I lived in Buckinghamshire, drove an hour to Abingdon where my office was, did a 9 to 5, 3 hours to Richmond, worked there until midnight, an hour back home, 2 hours on the phone to my girlfriend, keeping that going, and then 4 hours of sleep, hit the gym, go again, and did that for about 18 months until my care business kind of took off and I sold the restaurants. But it was basically immediately I got my CQC registration in end of November 2012. I started trading in 13, and right from there I thought, this is it. This is a real problem I need to fix. It's not the care side. There's a lot there that I need fixing, but it's actually the franchising bit. It's kind of creating a nuanced level of support, a really intricate system that allows growth for someone from any industry. What had been happening in care for the last 20 years in franchising was that it would be ex-registered managers, ex-care workers and so on that would come in and buy franchises and run those businesses. So they kind of understood the jargon. They were sort of a year, 18 months ahead of, from a knowledge basis, and then did local authority contracts. And I thought, well, we need to turn this whole thing on its head. We need to do private work, good quality margins. We need to use, have a proper tech stack and really get it and move things along to the next level. We need to have a proper playbook and think, right, and Penny Hopkins is certainly helping us with ours, and think, right, okay, how do we move someone from, listening to this to running a £2 million business, and what's in between that? So that was it for me. I thought, I'm going to get lots of external support and coaching, build my business up to over £1 million in revenue at sort of 20-25% net, sell the business, and start my own franchising operation. And and for me, it was I'm quite sort of tunnel vision when I really want to do something. I sort of thought that in 2013. Plowed away for 5 years and sold in 2018, and 2019 started my own franchising operation. And it's and that was the kind of inception stage, really.
That's really interesting when you said there about that single-minded focus. You do need that in business as well, but also at the same time as being able to lift others up with you on that journey and share in their success. But that was fascinating. So that brings us to this point where you began Walfinch, and where did the name come from? I'm interested in that. Where did the name come from?
We had a branding agency that helped us with it, actually, and I really liked the idea of having a word that didn't actually exist. So thinking about, something that you could then replicate and take abroad and do all of that fun stuff with. But I thought, well, actually, it'd be quite interesting to kind of come up with a word. And so they had given us lots of different options, but this particular word came from my surname, so Dhaliwal, and also the concept of a finch being an evolutionary bird, and us kind of going on this journey on sort of changing the industry, and I'm really interested in being a sort of positive disruptor within the sector, or actually of both sectors, really, of franchising and home care. And I think there's a lot of work that can be done in both areas.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So when it began, did you start it just you had your own site? Did you always have franchising as your expansion model in mind?
It's a good question, and I think Simon Wise has just actually asked, why did you choose franchising to grow the business? And I suppose the reason for that was, frankly, and I think most franchisors will tell you, certainly early doors, of if they put that much work in the principal business, they will earn more money out of the principal business. If I had set up 4 locations and just plowed that and spent all of my time doing that, the financial benefit, certainly early doors, would have been far better there. However, for me, it was about making positive impact and creating change. And I thought, well, there's within franchising, you get to help, certainly in my sector, you get to help three different parties. I can make the lives of care workers better through mass growth, through 200 locations over the next sort of 7 or 8 years. We can make the lives of care workers better. We can improve the lives of older people and their families and those relationships. And we can support entrepreneurs on their journey to self-employment, often from full-time employment. And that really interested me. And I just thought, well, first of all, I get to just have so many positive touch points, but also the scale that, if I had my own, if I grew it just, on my own, how many people would I impact? I'd impact 100, 200, 500, but over 200 locations over the next 5 or 10 years, we might impact thousands and thousands of people. And that just, the scale of it, I just thought, well, it's not often when you're setting up businesses, it's not about the financial reward needs to be there. Yes, whether you're running a care business, whether you're doing a franchising business, whatever it is, the financial reward, of course, needs to be there. But then you think beyond that and think, well, why am I doing this? And that, the why aspect, that really interested me, of thinking, well, the impact you can make, the positive impact on people's lives.
That's fantastic, and I love that. I think establishing your why in anything you do is so important, and I love the fact that you think as a founder, it's core of your organization, because as the founder, your values naturally filter down into a company culture, and the fact that you think about making the lives of three sets of people better, as that's at the core of your business. That's always going to come across, whether that is the wonderful people who do the care work, or whether that's the fantastic people that you look after, or whether it's the franchisees. You are thinking about making their lives better, and in franchising, that should always be the goal. Before we move on, let's just recognise a few other people and see if we've got any questions here. So Penny's got a question here. Apart from being fully immersed in the business and promoting and being the face of Walfinch, you're known for taking great care of your care workers. Can you tell us some of the things you do to support, motivate, and retrain them behind the scenes through your franchise and franchisees? Great question.
That is a wonderful question. And Penny, actually, I was at the care show yesterday. I delivered a talk on actually this topic, and specifically looking at care workers, for example, and staffing in general. We often talk about recruitment within the sector, but actually I've often felt that isn't the problem. Having run a home care business for over 10 years in Oxfordshire, recruitment's always a damn problem. So people are just far too affluent over there, no one wants to do the care work. So you think, well, okay, I need to attract people in the first place, but then when I've got them, I need to keep them. And so my mindset has always been about plugging the leak. And so I've often looked at sort of these businesses as a leaky bucket. And what often happens is that you fill it in with lots of water, and then there's just this hole at the bottom, and that water just slowly just comes out. And it doesn't matter how much water you put in the top, you can never fill that bucket. And I remember thinking about this and thinking, well, I've got competitors. This is back in 2013 that are spending £500, £600, £700 a month on Indeed. Small businesses, and if in today's money, that's a lot of money, frankly, for a small business. And you're not going to get the retention of that staff, all of the auxiliary costs around that, and so on. So I thought, well, how do we make a better experience for the care worker? And actually for the franchisee and everyone that is involved with us. And so simple things, I think, often like getting to know people. It sounds ridiculous, but when I was a single unit owner, On my phone, I had the notes of, right, Harvey Tuck, he's a care worker, great. And on his notes, these are the names of his children. This is how old they are. He has a dog. He loves a hat, and so on. And
Does love a hat.
so you'd walk into the office, we'd sit down, we'd have a cup of coffee, and I always used to give myself about 6 minutes as focus time. I'm not doing anything else. I'm just with you, Harvey. Eye contact. We're going to sit there. We'll shut the door. Right? What can I do with you? And what's on your mind? Tell me about the kids. And how's little Tommy doing? I remember he had a football team that he was going off to watch a game with, and all that kind of stuff. And you really get in there and you listen, and you make notes, and you remember, and you come back to it, and you put those important dates down and say, right, okay, well, you've just got married, great. Next year I'll send you an anniversary card, handwritten thank you notes. And it happened to me totally by accident. I remember I was walking through Oxford Town Centre, and I picked up the phone, and I was supposed to call someone in the office, and I called the next person down, and it was a care worker, and she picked up, and I was like, hold on, who have just called? and she was a great care worker, and I just said, look, I just called to say thank you. And she's like, and I thought, well, I'm not going to waste this opportunity. I may as well have a chat with her. And she was like, what? And I said, yeah, I called to say thank you for all the great stuff that you've been doing. I know that you picked up that extra shift last Saturday, and I just want to say that was really helpful, and so on. And she was just beside herself. And I put the phone down and thought, hold on, I'm onto something here, right? And so then I made a bigger deal out of it, and I thought, okay, let's do handwritten thank you notes, but really specific. For example, last week I had the franchising team, the management team that came to the office, and I sort of found out what their favorite chocolate was, and went out and it sort of got those specific Easter eggs for the team, and said, happy Easter and so on. And I'm not gonna call him out, but Richard Stanfield's already eaten his, for goodness sakes, Richard.
Terrible. I bet he was terrible when he was a kid, if he's already eating his eggs now.
I've already
that's all. That's an amazing story, really is.
It's just being specific with that, and I think whether and actually getting to know people is it. And I read this book called Drive by Daniel Pink, and it was all about motivation and what truly motivates people. And yes, obviously, money, you need a certain amount of it to live, and so on. And there's a problem with that in our sector with care workers and all that. But once you get beyond that, what is the true motivator? Your motivation might be different to my motivation. The motivation of other care providers is going to be different to mine. They want to roll out their own brand with the sole ownership and not franchise, because it's all about P&L. But for me, it might be something slightly different, as we talked about with impact and how many people you can touch.
Yeah, I think that's lovely, actually. It really lovely. I mean, and I think you're absolutely right. I often talk to franchisees about staff retention, and I talk about exactly that, about getting to know them, and what is special to one person is not to another. And the fact that you make the effort to find out a little bit about somebody, and even just that call would have meant a huge amount, and a huge amount more than sometimes the financial elements. They've got to be right. Of course, you've got to support people properly, and as you say, it's a sector that definitely needs perhaps some help there. But to phone somebody up as the founder and just say thank you, you're doing a great job, is really, really powerful, and so important to share here as part of your brand story, because it shows people you truly care. You're in an organization that's all about caring, and it's very clear to me, and I think to a lot of people here, and I'm sure to the people in your organization, how much you truly care. And that's so important. So thank you so much for sharing that story. Let's have a quick look, because we've got quite a few questions here. And while we're in this sort of middle section, it's nice to involve people that have taken the time to come and spend with us today. So we've got a question. Let's pick one here from Jason, from SEO Samba. And Jason's put, Amrit, how do you qualify your franchisees' operations empathy? This also mixes in a little bit with something that I want to put up here from Simon, because it's similar. So Simon has put, what is the profile of the people that join Walfinch as franchisees? Career, background, skills, and experience. Similar questions, but how would you approach that one? What type of characters do you normally see?
I think what we tend to find is that you've got people that are that kind of middle management run, that might be in organizations where they think, well, I'm really probably not going to get much further here unless I move, and they're at a kind of crossroads in their lives, and that's a really interesting place to be, I think, because you're truly looking at change. So quite often, those people are good at following a system, and they need to be. And they are also quite engaged as employers because they've had some experience in running teams, and maybe not huge teams, but they've had some experience in running teams. So the sort of skill sets and so on that I think you need to be or have some level of management experience or nous, because leadership within the sector is both a problem and an opportunity. And I think that if you can get good at that, and I found that really hard. If I put my hand up and say I've had to learn it, I've had to read about it, I've gone from extreme to extreme of being too empathetic to too hard, to finding a middle ground. Over I've basically always been self-employed since I was 22, and so it's quite a difficult thing, and so I think when we're looking at people, we'll sort of look at that. Obviously, there's a hygiene factor of do they have enough money? Are they going to be focused on this business? So if they've got three other things going on, does that work for us? And we say no a lot, actually, and it's kind of painful saying no to license fees and so on, but I think it's the right thing to do. I mean, last year we probably said more no's than yes, I think.
It's got to be right. It's a long-term partnership, isn't it?
And that's it, because I just think, having been on the other side of that table, I just think, well, the worst thing you want is someone either that's going to sort of blow their investment, because that's horrible for them and it's horrible for you, and I take it really personally, or you're going to have somebody that just isn't engaged. And I think, well, I value my team, and I don't want to send my team somewhere where they aren't valued because this is at the bottom of someone's thought process. I want this to be important to the person that we're delivering it to, because that's all we do. Friday night last week, I was there watching masterclass, looking at new things I can learn, and so how's that relevant to us? And there was a whole bit about Richard Branson. I was like, we could do some of this stuff, and off I was.
Am I going to see you in a hot air balloon, Amrit? Is that what's going to be next for you then?
I think that's right. There's going to be a big Walfinch hot air balloon. We're going to try and cross the Pacific. So
That's it. That's brilliant. One thing I was going to ask you is, in terms of a typical franchisee and the attributes of that particular individual, one of the things that I think is really key and important is passion. Right? Because if you're really passionate about an industry, and I mean, I said to you, my wife has been in care a lot of her career, and she's really passionate about helping people.
Yeah.
In any sense within that industry of care. How important do you think that passion is for a franchisee?
I think having passion is basically everything. If I look at my own life and my own successes in life and failures, they've really come from either being passionate or not. And when you're in the home care sector, it is emotionally, it can be brutal. You've got people that dying, you've got families that are in a difficult situation. Sometimes you're there being a counselor for the families and so on, because you've got two sets of siblings and families there that you're dealing with in order to kind of get the best outcome for the client. So you really need to want to do it. But also I'm a big believer of, you need to be passionate about the business that you are in as well. I'm very open and honest about this. I think that for too many years, care work was just seen as a social endeavor, but unless it's truly looked upon as a commercial thing, you're never going to have a nuanced leader that comes into it. It's never going to move on to the next stage. The profit that should be generated, a third of that needs to go right back into that business to develop it and help more people there. You're never going to do that unless it's a proper entity. So I think having passion and compassion is integral, certainly within this sector. So one of the things that when I'm looking at somebody, and we go through a whole vetting process just to kind of answer a couple of those questions. So we go through a whole vetting process where they'll speak to our franchise development person, who's Simon Mills, and they'll go through the whole piece there. They'll be vetted, scored, and so on. They'll then pass over to our operations team. Those guys will speak to them, vetted, scored. They'll do the same with franchisees, and then they'll come see me, and I'm actually the last person to speak to a franchisee, and that's by design, because I think actually the operations team and the franchisees are the guys that are going to be working with these people, and they need to, in order to create that cultural fit, that needs to kind of happen there, and then from my side, it's are they well funded? Do they have the kind of the passion piece? But the mum test for me, do I want this person or their company taking care of my mum? That's it. Everything else is white noise, because if you would send them to your mum's house, everything else works, right? And that's it. And I feel like you can simplify things to that degree.
Definitely, and simplifying things is always very hard to do, but you've really nailed it there. If you're looking at that business and you think, would I let this individual look after my mum, it's a great way of simplifying it down to some of the decisions. Some of those things, like you say, you're putting them through a process and they're going to come through that, but in the end, it comes down to them empathizing with you and with the values that you've put into the company. Before we continue, we've got a fair few comments here, so let's have a quick flick through this, if that's okay with you, Amrit.
Yeah, sure.
So Julie's put passion and compassion, a perfect mix. Love it. I do as well. I wrote that one down. I think that'd be quoted from this episode. We've got Joel here. The franchise king is here. Fantastic to have you here, Joel. I've had a few calls with Joel, lovely chap. He's put, how many prospective franchisees have you turned down and why? Well, yeah, you touched on that more than not. And I guess, could you summarize the reasons why you might turn a franchisee down? Just because they're not a fit, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, we must have turned down, over 20, 25 franchisees, and when you kind of multiply that by license fees, it's
because you care about your brand.
But you need to care about the brand, and I think the why is, more often than not, Joel, is because I wouldn't send them to my mum, and so I shouldn't send them to someone else's mum. And sometimes to protect people against themselves as well. I had a gentleman that, I mean, I've never had someone that's wanted to thrust a check under my nose so much, really, and so it was quite complimentary, but I sort of said, look, you're not funded enough, and he had just about enough money but not really, and I said, look, what if 2 months are kind of here or there? What if CQC takes slightly longer? What if you can't find a manager as quickly, or anything? And that's it. You're then going to run out of money, and I just thought, it's not responsible of me as an ethical franchisor, having been a franchisee, to take your money. So I simply won't. And I said, look, go away. I'd love to have you on board, because actually you're the right fit, but you're not funded enough. So come back in a year or two. Put some more pennies away, and let's do this. And we looked at various different options, and when the money's not there, that's only going to cause problems.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. You're protecting them as well from
Truly.
what wouldn't be an enjoyable experience, and they're
No.
not going to get what they need from it if they haven't got a big enough sort of buffer there. So, fantastic to hear how you care and look after people, even if it means saying no. It's the right thing to do sometimes. Um, let's have a quick look here. So Penny has put living your brand values and operating as a soul-centered network are wonderful differentiators. They are. And I struggled saying that word, but I got it. Thanks for your comment there, Penny. I put this up before. Unfortunately, we don't know who this is, so let us know. But this is lovely. Caring is truly at the heart of Walfinch. From its clients at home to its carers, franchisees and management makes a massive difference. So whoever put that, that's a wonderful comment and compliment, and thank you for being on and saying that. Let's have a little look at what Ed's put here. Amrit, you have some franchisees who have full belief in you and the Walfinch brand. What would you are the key things that you do personally to make your franchisees want to follow you? Yeah, it's a good question. I suppose that's how you're putting your own character out there to align with potential franchisees, because your character in the end has gone right the way through the business, and everyone cares for one another well, looks after one another, supports one another, and that's coming right across the network.
I think, and that's a really very complimentary question, actually, Ed. So thank you for putting that out there. But it all comes back down to caring for the individual and really thinking about, well, am I being honest and sometimes brutally honest? I had a meeting with a franchisee earlier today, and I said, look, these are the things here that are kind of crunchy, but I've got to say it, and I could actually just not say it, and it wouldn't be an issue to me, but it might be an issue to you in 3 years' time. So here you go. And sometimes you have to have that very, very honest discussion. I think that our network can see that everything I do or think about is very much about lifting us all together. It's not about this works for me, but it doesn't work for the network. It's about what works for all of us. Thinking about their P&L before my P&L, which is really been very much the case, and saying, well, okay, how do I put a pound in your pocket before I put a pound in mine, and how do I keep on delivering value to you every single day, month, week, year, and it's if you keep on doing the right things, and people can see that you're doing the right things, and people can see that you do what you say you're going to do, it's quite a straightforward thing. The other thing is that I don't pretend like I'm the finished article. I'm always learning. I've learned from Ed, for example, on okay, what sort of interesting new things can we be doing on socials, and I've learned from going out to the States a few times, and the BFA here, and so on, and going to these conferences, speaking to other franchisors that are longer in the tooth, and and really kind of getting out there and saying, okay, well, teach me, and then we'll try things, and we'll road test it at our own cost, and say, does it work, does it not, and so on, and just keep thinking 5 years, 10 years ahead. How does the business look then? How is this still relevant for your investment at that time? And I think if you're always thinking about that and thinking about the franchisee's profitability, everything else will happen, because then you will do the mum test, you will recruit the right franchisees, you will think about the brand and do the right stuff, because in the end that will make the franchisee money. And in franchising, that is our job, to protect their and develop their investment.
No, perfect. No, I love that. Do the mum test as well. I wonder if that can apply to any other businesses.
I'm
I
sure
sell my
anyone.
mum this cup of coffee. I don't know. Maybe. Well, just in case anyone's just joined us today, this is Franchising Brand Stories, and we're talking to the wonderful Amrit of Walfinch, all about his story and the story behind Walfinch. Before we move on to what will be the final section of the show, all about what you're planning for the future. We've got a few other comments, and always like to recognize people that are here and the comments that they make. So Simon's put here, tell us about your standout franchisees. I'm sure they're all lovely as well, but is there a particular story or character that, that over the years, you thought, wow, that was a really interesting learning, and, that's something I can share with other potential franchisees?
I think there's just so many great stories, and we are very lucky that we've got so many standout franchisees. But my mind immediately is cast to our first franchisee, Sarah Wickham, and we have this kind of emotional journey that we went on, and she went from employment and being director level and making that leap into self-employment, and for me, I thought, my God, I'm so honored that somebody believes in my vision, the way I believe in my vision, and wants to do this. And so, but if I look at Sarah, and I think all of the great characteristics of she's a great networker, and I think that's really important with this sector. And she's naturally good with people, therefore she's a lovely employer, open to care workers and so on. And we've just been on this really interesting journey where I've learned being a franchisor, and she's learned being a franchisee and a business owner, and we've kind of sort of taught each other in many ways along the way, and she's our first multi-unit franchisee as well, and sort of really gets it, and is actually just developed a really wonderful service and business, and really impacted lots of people's lives in a really positive way. Actually, I'm seeing her on Monday, so I'm out in Suffolk, and we're having a sort of day together, and I think actually to someone's question earlier as well, it's getting out there, being on the road, seeing what the action's like, and it's all good and well sort of with the management meetings and people reporting numbers back, and that's important, but you need to get out there as a franchisor and feel the temperature, and it allows you to make good quality decisions.
No, 100%. And you're a shining example of getting out there, that's for sure. We're going to take two more questions, one from Robert, and then we're going to move on to a question, I think it was from Kevin, that neatly delivers us to our last section. So let's just have a quick look at what Robert's put here. Firstly, Robert, welcome to Franchising Brand Stories. Great to have you here. And he's put, I have always believed that businesses which are expanding need people who are committed and responsible to the company vision. Franchisees are generally always personally committed to the vision. I agree with that. I agree. If they're on board in the right way and they're the right fit for the organization. What's your take on that?
I think actually it sort of relates back to Simon Wise's earlier question as to why franchise. These are hyper local businesses. You need to get to know the territory street by street, and you need to get to know everyone within that sector. And people that you employ will do a wonderful job for you. But someone that's put their house on the line, they will work and they will want to do it because it's as important to them as it is to you. So absolutely, Robert, I think you have a very kind of connected fate and a shared vision. So it's just very, very important. So
yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to a comment that, if I can find it, let's move on to a comment here that Kevin has put, because the last section of this, I want to talk about your plans for the future, what new initiatives you've got coming in, what exciting things you've got coming up in the next few months and years. Kevin has put, love that. Know you love tech. Are you looking to further affect even greater change impact through software services as you grow, e.g. the spin out of booking software from Swim Time? So this brings me neatly on to what's your plans and Walfinch's plans for the future moving on? What exciting things have you got coming up?
It's all exciting. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm all arms wavy me, so I'm always there. Right? So that's the thing that excites me, and so I need lots of really good doers around me to that kind of keep me like, right. That's a 10-year, but what are we up to tomorrow? So my for me, I think with to kind of answer Kevin's question as well, I was actually with Theo from Swim Time in the States, and we spent a bit of time there at the International Franchise Association's annual convention in Phoenix, and we spoke a lot about data, and he's just wonderful if you ever get to hear him speak somewhere, and really kind of gets it. And for me, I think that there's a huge space, and actually white space within the sector of kind of using data to help make good quality business decisions, both from the home care side and also from the franchising side. So it's really harnessing that, and we've kind of got a good quality tech stack together to help that, and things that actually I know that will be even more relevant in 5 years' time than they are today, and saying, right, okay, how do we sort of embed all of that into our day to day? In terms of scale and what we're up to, I think over the next 5 years, 10 years, we'd like to grow to an over 200 location business with, so to be one of the kind of main home care providers in the franchising space, because I think there's some really wonderful names out there at the moment, and I've got to know a lot of them, and I think there's just a really when we're talking about passion and compassion, I think that some of our competitors have that in spades, and it's a great place to be. And so I'd like to kind of join that and see what we can do about joining forces to really help improve the whole industry. I'd love to move into the international space when we are, when it's right for us as an organization as well, and we've got the right kind of things happening here. That's certainly on the cards, because for me it's a 20-year play. I've just turned 37, so I had a very upsetting February, because it's truly on the wrong side of 30. But so,
I'm soon to be at the wrong side of 50, so you're going to be all right.
You look great. You look great. I've got probably more white bits here.
You'll be all right.
For me, it's very much, I'm at the beginning of my career, and I've got young children and so on. So it's really about where can we take this, and how do we create this really wonderful self-fulfilling and growth model for both the franchisees, for all of the employees across the country, world, whatever, that work with us, and our team. I think I'm so blessed that the people that work with us. I sometimes sort of pinch myself, thinking, my God, it's they've seen something, and I'm very honoured to work with the people that we work with, actually, because they are wonderful and better than me at the things that they do, and that is every business owner's dream, frankly. So it's really to do more of what we're doing, and just keep going at a sensible pace, and keep having fun with it, because really it needs to be fun. If I'm doing it every day and it's not fun, well, screw it, right? So I really, you want to have a laugh, and I want the franchisees to build and have fun. Same for the care workers, and really change the industry along the way in a really positive way.
Oh, that's fantastic. And that's a lovely way to sort of start to conclude things today, because some really exciting things happening. And, I love the fact that you're taking your time with some of that expansion as well. That you're making sure things are right here before you end up, going to other regions. I also love the fact that you learn from others. Ever since I first met you, I was always very impressed how you were supportive of your peers, you say competition, but the other people within the industry, and how you learn together. And I think it's important, and I don't think that happens very often. And you are a huge advocate of that. And it's something I always really admire, how open you are, when you're always the first to compliment and comment in amongst the people that you work with and your competition. So I applaud you for that. I also love the fact that I always remember an expression: you never want to walk into the room being the cleverest person there. And it resonates with me. You've got to learn, be a sponge,
Yeah.
ask good questions, and find out about people. And you've clearly got that, in your business and how you go about things. So it's fantastic. We are starting to come to a conclusion now. I did want to sort of finish up by, letting you tell people how they can get in touch with you, how they can start that process if they want to. So what's the sort of the best first steps for someone?
No, absolutely. And so, if you are interested in having a discussion with us about franchising and to see whether we're a right fit for each other and go on that journey, one of the best ways to get hold of us is through the website, and somebody will contact you immediately through there. Alternatively, you can always send me a message on LinkedIn, Amrit Dhaliwal QFP, and I'd love to speak to people through it. I mean, we're quite easy to find and get hold of. I'd like to think so. We're on sort of all of the portal sites, and we've got our things going on and all of that. And or quite frankly, if you ever see me or any of the team sort of out and about somewhere, pull us aside, have a chat, and we'd quite love that, really. And always time for a coffee.
Absolutely. Listen, that it's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for being our wonderful first guest. I hope that you've enjoyed the experience. I want to thank everyone who's been here today as well, for their wonderful contributions and comments. This show is always driven by the community at large, and I think that represents really well what Amrit and Walfinch are all about, supporting and lifting one another up. So I want to thank everyone for being here. And I want to say a big special thank you to you, Amrit, for being our wonderful first guest. Yep, next week we have Graham Duckworth from Driver Hire. So that's next Thursday, 5:15 GMT, 11:15 EDT. I'm getting confused with that because the clocks keep changing. But we will be back next week. Thank you, everyone, once again. And thank you, Amrit. You've been fantastic.
Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. See you soon.